Hey, what's up, fellas? Today I'm going to be talking about why I believe games should use more of that Cold War vibe. Um, well, let's just get started. Why do I believe games and media as a whole should use more of that Cold War aesthetic, or that sort of vibe, that impending doom but not quite sort of feeling? Um, I think it's just a cool sort of thing you can play off of, kind of having that near peer, oh, but you won't fight each other kind of thing because you both know it would destroy each other, right? Destroy yourself as much as them, kind of thing. Mutually assured destruction, that whole thing. And I think it'd be cool to like see more media do more offshoots of that and stuff like that. I think they could really branch out quite a bit, explore like alternate history scenarios that come from the Cold War, sci-fi Cold Wars, maybe even an entirely fictional Cold War that isn't based on our real one at all, other than like the vibes and stuff like that. And I think games should really sort of try to get that vibe more. And what is that vibe? What am I trying to say? Uh, if you play a game called Hearts of Iron 4, chances are you know a mod called TNO, The New Order. It's if the Nazis won World War II and it goes into like, well, our Cold War timeline, like 60s, 70s, that sort of thing, but if the Nazis won. And kind of does that whole thing. Not quite like Wolfenstein. They don't take over America or anything like that. Not like Man in the High Castle, but it just plays out like a Cold War. It I think it does some interesting things to facilitate this world. Like, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Japan nukes Pearl Harbor or something, and then that's enough for America to surrender and be humiliated, whatever. Point is that you're kind of in like a three-way Cold War thing. So instead of it being Soviets in America, it's the German Reich, the Japanese Empire, uh, and America. And I think that's cool, but I think the problem is Tino. It's fairly railroaded, but I think that sort of vibe, that sort of like, ooh, I gotta one up these guys for the clout, the piety, the prestige. It's just kind of like a big pissing competition between the three. I think that's cool, and I think if more games kind of have that as like a background world setting, I think it could. I just think it's cool. That's it. I just think it's cool. I think it's cool to have these petty sort of rivalries, and then these petty rivalries balloon into like real, serious, I guess, moral dilemmas and stuff like that. I mean, if you look at the real Cold War, it was kind of messy. It's messy. It was morally conflicting. They couldn't fight each other directly, so where did they fight? Well, they fought in other places, right? They fought in other nations, that sort of thing. And I think games could expand on that. One of the things that I think TNO does really cool is its sort of proxy war system. It has like a little map that pops out, and you can send in aid and support your guys. And whoever supports their guys more has a better chance of winning that. But I think TNO is very limiting in that. You can't start your own. You can't. It doesn't balloon naturally into a sort of proxy war, or like, I guess it doesn't balloon an escalation naturally. It's a very set thing that's going to happen for the story, and you can influence it a little bit here and there, sure, but it's very like, this is what it is. And I think there's a lot of things that a Hoi 4 mod could do with that sort of system. I really like the menu and the UI and like the idea of it. It's really cool. I just think if it was left a little bit more open, so that those things could happen organically. And I understand there's limitations with Hearts of Iron, but I'm just saying, if there's anybody who wants to reach out into the RTS market, like that sort of grand strategy map game sort of thing, I think maybe look into that. Maybe look into having these sort of naturally escalating conflicts in different places than just fighting the opponent itself. I think that'd be really cool to look into. Now, I also think that games should sort of expand on the messy factor. Um, Sort of like the espionage, the politics, the balancing of military action versus like PR, right? Uh, I think it'd be cool. And it becomes a game of like trying to work within the shadows, but influence your rival, influence the people that are working with them. And I think that opens up a lot of doors to really cool game mechanics, especially for an RTS sort of game. Managing your espionage and stuff. I know Hoy has the spy feature, but it's kind of right. I think if it was like committed to a little bit more, and it tied more directly to the politics and military action, I think it'd be really cool. Yes, I know there's collaboration governments, but really, when you look at it, what does that really do? It just makes them capitulate easily, right? That's really the use for that. That's the only reason why people make a collaboration government in the game, is just so you can capitulate the enemies quicker, you know. I wish it wasn't so direct, do this is what it does. I wish it was kind of like organically progressing, right? You know, you infiltrate their military, and then you learn that they're developing something, and then you can actually see what it is they're developing, and then be like, oh crap, now I need to pivot into that. And that's an interesting thing, because in Hearts of Iron 4, especially multiplayer, now I'm not too experienced with that, but I've certainly watched a bunch of content. It seems like, you know, you got to decide, what is your nation going to build towards? Are you going to be like a tank only nation? You're going to focus on your air, you're going to focus on good infantry, you know, what are you going to do? I think that would open the door to a lot of interesting, I guess, sort of nation development that you have to choose, if you know exactly where, I guess, enemy nations are developing towards. And I know they have, you can see their units, and you can kind of tell, oh, they're investing more in this and blah, 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 blah. But it doesn't really get into specifics, right? Maybe it doesn't need to. So that's why I'm saying, like, maybe a separate game, another game that can focus on this better might be the option. And even Iron Curtain. Iron Curtain is just a Cold War mod for Hearts of Iron 4. It shares a lot of the problems I have with TNO, in that it's just kind of missing a certain feel to it. It doesn't really feel like the Cold War. I mean, it does, right? I mean, it's literally the events of the Cold War. Same with TNO. It sort of has the same. It mimics a lot of real life stuff, but I feel like, I don't know. It's missing that certain. Again, I think it's that organicness to it. It's missing that just ballooning of escalation that happens, and it stresses you out. It's like, oh crap. Well, how far is they? How far are they willing to go? How far am I willing to go? How much are we going to balloon this conflict? It doesn't really do any of that, especially Iron Curtain. Iron Curtain is just, super railroaded. TNO is super railroaded. They have a story they want to tell, and that's what it is. And for what it is, it's okay. It's a decent story. I didn't mind it. But I think having a game where it's like, you get to make the story, you get to show, like, you get to decide. You get to decide the escalation. How much do you really want to put into this? Is it really worth investing in this small island? Well, this small island could be a strategic asset because it's like right next to their whatever base. I think that's just cool. It allows, and it allows cool player interactivity as well, right? Because now they have to interact with each other. They could, make petty alliances and petty rivalries here and there. I'm only going to ally you because we hate this guy. And then as soon as you hate that guy, you backstab him. It just opens the door to so much chaos. And I think that's really cool. I think we can use a little more chaos in those grand strategy map games. I understand it's not for everybody. I know there's a lot of people that want strictly historical focus and stuff like that. I don't necessarily disagree with that. But this is just, I think it'd be fun. All right, I think it'd be fun. Branching out from grand strategy games, the only other big franchise I can think of, like bigger than Paradox Interactive, is Call of Duty, right? They did whole Cold War stuff. I still think the best one they did for that Cold War sort of thing was Black Ops 1. I really like Black Ops 1. Just the whole vibe of it, the story where, it's like, oh, is Mason secretly, doing some crazy stuff in the background, and then the ending where it's like, oh, he's the guy who assassinated, it's like, oh, he doesn't even know. I think that's cool. I think some cool stuff. It plays into like MK Ultra and blah 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 blah, and yet it's a super mainstream Call of Duty game, and it's just having that in the background in the world is like super cool. And I wish more games did that. That's the vibe I'm talking about, where it's like, people can pick it up and play it. It's got a cool Cold War aesthetic, sure. But I think having that vibe in the background, the secret, the sus shit, the espionage crap, I think would be really cool. And I just wish more games had it. And basically the point of this video is just, I think there's a lot of opportunity that you can take with this whole thing. Branching out, doing sci-fi stuff. I thought of like a story where, what if the Cold War continued and the Soviets didn't collapse, and then you got to go through a whole bunch of weird things that the Soviet doesn't collapse and your economy's fine, blah 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 blah. But like, I've thought of a cool story, and it led to a cool idea for a game, like a game world, I guess, an environment, a setting for a video game, which is there's this program that the United States did, the Star Wars Initiative, and there's something called Brilliant Pebbles, which was the idea that you basically release a satellite that could launch tiny little pebbles, but they have like a little computer on board, and so that when the USSR shot a ICBM, you'd be able to intercept it immediately in space, or at least on the cusp of space, and then you can just prevent it from even going into that sort of orbital phase. It's not an orbit, but I don't remember the exact term, but there's a term for that phase where it's left the atmosphere and it's gonna come down in a couple minutes. But I was thinking, like, what if it sort of ballooned up and then the Soviets didn't collapse and they developed their own, because the only reason the United States stopped was because the Soviet Union didn't exist anymore. But if they still existed, and they went forward with the Star Wars Initiative and they built all this crazy defense stuff, what if the Soviets did it? And then it became, like, ooh, what's going on? And then, they colonized the moon and stuff like that. And, sci-fi Cold War, where it kept going, but the space race was just elevated because, neither one of them wanted to back down, and the Soviets found themselves in a position to re-enter the game, re-enter the race. So they colonized the moon, blah, 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 blah. They got bases there, and then they realize, ooh, I don't know, some drama happens, and then nuclear exchange, whoa, but then it's awkward. It's super awkward. All the missiles are shot down. What are they going to do? Not shoot it? So they shoot them anyways. They shoot them, the ICBMs out, and they all get shot down. They all get intercepted. Very few land. And then both nations kind of come to this realization, like, oh, we've done the nuclear exchange, but neither of us are like non-functional. There's still like an active military, and then it goes into like a direct military conflict in Europe or something, and it's just a slugfest. All the good equipment is already used up within the first few weeks of the war, and it's just a huge war of attrition. Both sides are kind of scared to do a large fighting like that again in Europe. They suffered losses. They haven't accumulated the equipment losses, and then it goes into the proxy war stuff. I think like a setting like that would be very cool, and it's just like, that's just an idea, just an idea. It's kind of sloppy, sure. I haven't really thought through all the details, and I'm probably not going to, unless I seriously consider making a game, which I don't know, probably not anytime soon, that's for sure. But I just want to sort of share that as an example, where you can take this and balloon it into something really cool, really crazy, just a unique setting, which, there's a ton of Cold War settings and Cold War games, but I think there's just a lot more room. I think it's a lot more room out there to explore and make some cool stuff. So, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. This video was just to explore options and maybe inspire people to create some more entertainment with some ideas from what I've said and the Cold War vibe. Anyways, thank you. Bye-bye.